This is the second episode of the SOAR for Fun and Profit webinar series. It's a series we're organizing a couple of times each year to do a deep dive into a technical topic about Cortex XSOAR, which is the SOAR platform from Palo Alto. We use XSOAR in our managed SOC at NVISO, where we do security monitoring for a lot of different clients. And from the beginning of the SOC, we actually have an automation first principle. We try to automate as much as possible all of the tasks of the SOC analyst. This means the enrichment of all of the alerts, creating tickets and ITSM tools, sending emails, also doing automated analysis, and we've also started to implement automated remediation actions. If you're interested in seeing a demo from that, I did a presentation on B-Sides Attendees, where we actually did a demo of a remediation framework. So if you Google that, you can look at that demo. We use XSOAR as a single pane of glass for the SOC analyst, basically. That they only have one interface they need to look at to see all of the alerts coming in from all of the different platforms. We support multiple platforms in our managed SOC. We support Elastic Seam, Sentinel, Splunk, also a lot of different EDR tools. XSOAR allows us to have the analyst only look at one dashboard for all of the incidents that they need to handle. Everything is automated. We do the enrichment automatically. Also, once an incident has been handled, we also close all of the alerts and all of the source platforms automatically. And we try to automate as much as possible the tasks, the boring tasks of SOC analysts to allow them to spend more time investigating interesting alerts to detect actually intrusions in the environments of our customers. The content we will be giving here is always based on the blog series Cortex, the Cortex XSOAR tips and tricks. If you go to blog.nviso.eu, you will find them. So if at one point during the presentation something is not clear, you missed something, you want to reread something, you can always go to the blog posts and see a detailed description of what we're actually discussing here. Before we get started, I'll introduce myself a bit. I'm Wouter Stinkes. I'm the team lead SOAR engineering at NVISO. I've been working at NVISO for 4 years already. I have a background, and a very diverse background. I started as a Windows client management system engineer. I did DevOps, Linux admin, and then I got into security. And for the last 2 years, I've been developing developing all of the SOAR playbooks and keeping the XSOAR platform operational. Okay, so let's dive into the Cortex XSOAR API. The API in XSOAR is actually, XSOAR has created an API which allows you to automate additional things outside of the platform. Let me change my screens and I'll already show you. The API allows you actually to automate things not only from within XSOAR itself, but also from an external source. If you want to write a Python script which interacts with XSOAR, all of those things. In the previous webinar, I've also shown you how we use the API in our automations. It is possible to, there are certain use cases why you would actually execute a command through the API. If you're interested in that, rewatch the previous recording or check out the blog posts. But what we also use the API for example, is we have all of our content stored in GitHub repositories. We use remote repositories in XSOAR, which is a feature which allows you to synchronize content between multiple servers. We have a development, testing, staging, testing, and production server. We use the remote repository feature in XSOAR to actually synchronize the content between all of those servers. That content is stored into XSOAR. We use GitHub Actions together with the API to automatically deploy that content. We use to automatically verify the correct functionality of all of the content we deploy. And that's also what you can use the API for. It actually allows you to interact with XSOAR in your own custom scripting. In GitHub Actions, we use Python scripts to do certain actions like deploying content, deploying content, running tests, and we do that all through the API. So What would you do if you want to use the API in your environment? You want to write a custom script. First thing you need to do is check out the documentation. Where you can find it, if you go to XSOAR, you go to settings, and integrations and API keys. Here you can see you need a key, of course, to interact with the API. And here you can also view the documentation of the XSOAR API. You have three buttons here, three links you can click. The first one is view the Cortex XSOAR API on the server itself. And this gives you it's a long web page with all of the API endpoints available through the API and all of their data. Okay, this is an interesting starting point. The second thing is you can download the exact same content here as a PDF file. But the third thing, which we will show you how to use, is downloading the Swagger file. Swagger is actually a set of tools, open source tools you can use to either develop or interact with an API, any API. So I'll show you how you can actually use this to interact with the XSOAR API without writing a single line of code, and that's one of the nice things. So if you want to use Swagger, you need to first download the rest of the file. We open it. It's basically a JSON file which contains the entire definition of the XSOAR API, all the available endpoints. Okay, and this is basically what you get. You get a JSON file. This JSON file needs to be imported into the Swagger editor. The Swagger editor is one of those tools created by Swagger to interact with with an API. So let me show you how to do this. We're going to use a Docker container. Swagger created a Docker container, which means that you don't have to import all of the prerequisites as based on it's written in JavaScript. So you don't have to import all of the prerequisites. And the command you can do it is this one. It downloads the Docker image and it starts a web server basically on your local VM. Okay, so now the Swagger editor is up and running, and you can access it just by going to localhost. And this is what it looks like. This is Swagger. Here on the left, you can see the API definition. This is where you actually import the file we previously downloaded from the XSOAR web interface. So I copy pasted it. So let's delete this one and import the JSON file. It asks you to convert the JSON file into YAML. Click OK. And voila. This error is normal. Apparently, there is one of the syntax error in the JSON file downloaded in the Swagger definition downloaded from XSOAR, but you can just hide this, and this can be ignored. Let me go through this. And what you can see here is actually all of the documented API endpoints that are available in XSOAR. It's actually pretty cool. You can see which methods are allowed. If you expand one of these, you can see the description of the API. You can see what the expected value is for the body. So this is already pretty cool. This is all of the information you need to craft all of your HTTP requests towards the XSOAR API. And if you scroll down, you can even see the expected return value, the response value of your HTTP request. So this is all of the data that you could get back from that API endpoint. This is already pretty cool, but additionally, Swagger also allows you to actually interact with the API. And how would you do this? If you go here to the YAML file, so this is actually the definition of what you see here on the right. What you'll need to replace is on line 36 the host name with the actual URL of your XSOAR server. For this, we're going to use our development server. And the reason why we're using our development server and not my demo server is because actually Swagger requires you to have a valid SSL certificate. my demo, if you deploy XSOAR by default, it has a self-signed certificate. If you deploy it by default, it has a self-signed certificate, but Swagger does not allow you to trust self-signed certificates. So you always need a valid SSL certificate to connect to the server. So here you put the URL of your hosts. And because we use a multi-tenant host, I also need to add the account. That's one thing you need to do. Second thing you need to do is, I showed you previously where you create the API key. That API key you need to add here. If you click authorize, here you need to add the API key that you previously created in the web interface of XSOAR. So, okay, so now we should be able to interact with the API. Let's find an easy one we can do. The get reports, okay, this is just a get request. You can click here, try out, and then execute. It will show you the actual curl command you can use to execute this API, to execute this API request, which is actually pretty cool. But we're actually getting an error at the moment. So we're getting an error, network error, when attempting to fetch resource. This is actually because of cross-origin resource sharing limitations. This is actually a HTTP-based mechanism that allows the server to indicate which domains a browser is permitted to load resources. What we're basically doing here is we're connecting to a web server on localhost, and this web server connects to a different server to do its API request. So you actually connect to the, this is our dev server, to this server. Because this is not allowed by the headers, Firefox automatically blocks it. So we need to actually allow our browser to load resources from a different domain than the Swagger editor, than basically localhost. How do we do this? In Firefox, you can basically install an add-on. Let's see, more tools. Where are the add-ons and themes? And if you search for CORS, cross-origin resource sharing, you have this one, CORS everywhere. I don't recommend this. Recommend running this in all of your when you do normal surfing. Only enable this specifically for when using this. When using the Swagger editor. The plugin has been installed. Here you can see a button. You need to click on this button until it turns green. And if we now click execute, it should normally be allowed to run a query against our development server. Let's give it a second. Okay, well, and here we can actually get the response body back from the XSOAR API. So this is actually really cool. Why? Because this allows you to interact with the API without writing a single line of code. Because if you have a use case in mind you want to automate, you want to create a Python script, for example, which what we've done is we created a Python script to eventually query Sentinel of all of our customers to get specific data for alerts we use for classification. That's something we actually did. But if you first want to make sure that, okay, the API actually supports what I want to do, you could use this Swagger editor to do this. One of the downsides of the Swagger editor is its performance isn't always that great. You saw when we click execute, it waited a couple of seconds. I've seen it hang for actually a lot of different reasons. So that's the downside of it. Probably if you don't use the Docker container, performance will be much better. But because the performance is not that good, we are going to use Postman to actually do all of the API queries. This will still allow you, the Swagger editor will still allow you to see all of the different, let's get another one. Another interesting API endpoint is the incident search. That is basically to search all of your incidents. Here you can still use it to see, okay, what is the body I need to provide with my post request? What is the data that gets back from that gets returned from that API request? That's still very interesting. But yeah, here you can already see scrolling doesn't even go that fast. And if you click try it out and you need to edit the actual body, it's not super responsive. So yeah, this is not. Let me. I'll show you another one. This is a good one to do. But the cool thing about this, as I said, you can see all of the required fields. You can actually get the curl request. So if you want to run this just from your command line, that's really easy. But the performance isn't that great. So as I said, we're going to use Postman for this. Let me close this one quickly. Postman is actually a tool created to interact with APIs. It's a very easy tool. It's a bit of the industry standard. It's used by quite a lot of people. So I'll show you how to create all of those API requests in Postman. First thing you would need to do, as I said, we're going to connect to my demo server. My demo server doesn't have a valid SSL certificate. We need to allow self-signed SSL certificate. So we need to put here SSL certificate verification. We need to put this to off. Let's first create a new collection. Wait. A new collection. Let's edit it. How do you rename it? And the nice thing about a collection is you can actually already define your API key that needs to be used for all of the requests you'll create in that collection. So let's add an API key. Let's go to the here. Let's create an API key. Okay. This. Let's add it here. The key we can basically see here. So it needs to be the authorization key in the header where the API key needs to be added. So it's the authorization key with the value, the API key. Okay, great. Let's save this. And let's create a new request. Give it a title. Let's first do the search incident again, we saw previously. So let's get the URL of the server. It's a post request, and then we need to add the we need to add the API endpoint /instance/search, and then we need to define the body. See. Okay, we already replaced it. Well, one of the most interesting things you can actually do in the body here is use a query filter. The queries are actually things you can, the query is similar to the query you can execute here in the interface. Here you can really do very complex queries to get the incidents that you want. And the same query you can actually use in your API request. So here we have created a couple of incidents. Let's delete this. We just, for demo purposes, we created 3 incidents. One is closed. And one is unclassified, and these are the incident types. And let's say we only want the closed events. The body we actually need to give it, as we give it a raw body in JSON format, is this. So we define the filter, and the status is closed. It's the same query we actually would do in the interface. So if you now click send, so we get this is the return data from the API. So yeah, this is already pretty cool. You can see how many incidents you actually got returned. And here you can see all of the data of the actual incident. So in data, you basically have a list with a dictionary in there. And this dictionary you can actually start using in your Python script. Okay, this is already an interesting API endpoint. Another really interesting API endpoint is this one, entry/execute/sync. If we look at the description, it says create new entry in existing investigation. From the description, you can't really see, but this allows you to execute commands in an integration. This is what I meant when I said the interface isn't that responsive always. No, this is not the correct one. This allows you actually to execute commands in an investigation. An investigation is basically an incident. That's how it's called in XSOAR. So again, let's try to create an API request which executes a command. It's a post request. Let's get the URL of the server. Let's add the API endpoint. And then for the body, the body we need to use is, well, let's see here. Here you can actually see the entire, all of the allowed keys that, all of the data that's allowed in the request body. What we actually need to give is basically the investigation ID and the data. The data is the same. This data should contain the command you want to execute. So for example, we want to run and execute a command in this incident. So yeah, let's first clear the playground. We want to run a simple command. Let's start with a print. So let's clear these ones. Okay, it didn't get printed. Let's refresh the screen maybe. Okay, well. So here you can see, okay, this command got printed. Let's execute this one through the API. Should we do here? Let's go to Postman. What do we need? We need an investigation. Investigation ID. This needs to be between quotes. Okay. On which investigation do we want to run it on? We just saw the ID was 1. And the data which we need to add is basically the command. Let's escape these values. Okay, so if we execute this, you will see that this command will be run on the machine. So let's go back to the incident. Okay, let's give it printed. Let's make it clear that this is done through the API. Okay, and here we can actually see the command being run on the incident. This is pretty cool. So this allows you to actually run every command available. So if you see here you can see all of the commands available from within XSOAR itself. You can actually run every command available through the API, which is pretty cool. But what you could also basically do is run it in the playground. In XSOAR, you have the concept of a war room, which is always within the context of an incident, but you also have the playground. This actually allows you to run any command without needing an incident. So, for example, what I said before, we use the API to query the Sentinel, Azure Sentinel from one of our clients, and we do this through XSOAR, so we have access to all Azure Sentinels from all of our clients. How you would do this is use this command. Azure Sentinel list incident. That's limited to only one. Okay, here you get the Azure Sentinel incident. If you want to do this, this is not linked to an actual incident. You don't need an incident to do this query. So how would you do this from the API? If you see here, if you look at the incident ID, which is here. If you use this incident ID as an investigation ID, that's not correct. If you do it here, you can now see that the command is actually executed in the war room. Voila. So this will allow you to run commands not related to an incident. So let's try running this command in through the API, because there's something I want to show you guys. Let's run this command. We want to get all of the Azure Sentinel incidents. If you send this, what you'll see here, and this is what the actual response is of executing the command through the API. And here you'll see the contents. But this is actually the data you see here in the interface. If you want to do this programmatically, it's not that interesting. What you actually want is the actual data of the alert. And this you can get by adding this field. You have when you execute a command in XSOAR, if you add the raw response equal true parameter, you actually get the full JSON data of the alert itself, which is actually the thing you would want to have when you're doing programmatically executing commands in XSOAR. So again, let's run this command. We just added the raw response equals true. Let's run this. And what you can see now here in the contents key of the response is actually the entire data of the alert. And that's what you want. So if you execute commands through the API in XSOAR, always use the raw response equals true. Because this will actually return the actual data which you want to have from in your incident. Okay, give me a second. So if you see, if you look at the documentation or the Swagger file, you can see all of these API endpoints that are available. But what if you want to do something which does not have a documented API? Actually, also something pretty cool. Using the XSOAR API, you can also use all of the API endpoints used by the XSOAR interface itself. A lot of them are actually not documented. So this really expands the use cases for automation. And I'll show you how you can discover those. So let's go back to the interface. Let's say this is a multi-tenant server. So on the server, we have multiple accounts. Let's say we want to know how to start and stop an account. The way you would do this is basically open the developer tools. I'll put this on the left of the screen. On the left. The developer tools of Firefox, or you can do the same thing in Chrome. And basically what you can do here is if you click on what you want to do, in this case, stopping in a multi-tenant account, if you click on stop and stop, here you will actually see the endpoints used by the web interface. So what you can see here basically is, okay, you have the, well, here you have the accounts endpoint, and this has a stop endpoint. So actually here you can see the entire, this endpoint can be used also with the same API key from your custom scripts. So we're going to go back to Postman. Let's add a new request. Let me see, what was it? It was a post request, that you can see that here in the headers. This is the API endpoint used, but okay, what is the request body we need to give that post request? That you can also see here. You can, if you go to the requests tab, you can see the actual the request body that's given. Let's just get it as a raw JSON file. Add this to Postman as its body. So JSON. Okay, but what we haven't done yet is start the account. So let's manually start the account. And now let's stop it again from using the API. Okay, forbidden. Okay, I know why this. No. Yeah, I know why this happened. The reason why this happened is because I create the API key I created it in the account. I should have created it on the main server. So let's get a new one. Let's change the API key used. Here, save it. Okay, let's try this again with an API key created on the main account. Okay, we didn't get a forbidden error. Let's check out the accounts, and now it has been stopped. Okay, cool. Let's see how we can start this again. Now we already did this in the web interface, so we should be able to see this in here. Okay, and here we can see the start endpoint. If we go to the headers, okay, it's account/start. Okay, so this is probably the one we need to use to start the account back up. Let's duplicate this one. Okay, I didn't save it. That's always something you need to remember when using Postman. Always save every changes you did, otherwise you will lose your work. So let's start. We need to know which what the request body will be. Okay, this will be the request body. Go back here. Change the request body. Okay, cool. We got a 200 response. Okay, so the account should have been started again. Okay, nice. We've seen. Okay, so the account is started again. So this really allows you to go through the web interface of XSOAR and actually try to see. You can basically automate everything which is available in the web interface. We still have some time, so maybe I'll show you one other thing that we can, one other interesting API endpoint we can use. So let's maybe quickly stop following it. Let's trash everything. Within XSOAR, you have the concept of the marketplaces, where you can actually install third-party content packs, which is all kinds of content, integrations, automations, incident fields, incident types. And you can actually also install this through the API. Why would you want to do this? For example, if you would want to create a script which completely configures your XSOAR server. If you can install it. You can install it manually, but when you set up XSOAR, it does need a lot of configuration. This entire thing can actually be automated through the API and also through the undocumented API endpoints. And one of the things you need to do is basically install content packs. You're not going to develop everything yourself. If something is available, why develop it yourself? So you can look at the marketplace and see, okay, what do I want to use here? So what we want to do is there is an integration written by me, Postmark spam check. This basically allows you to send your emails to a public spam assassin setup to get the spam score. We use this in our SOC to determine, okay, the user has reported a phishing email, but sometimes it's difficult for our users to make the distinction between spam and phishing. And this can be used actually to see, okay, what is the spam score of my reported mail, basically. So if you want to install this, you click the install button. But let's track the API requests that are done here. Let's start this. If we now click the install button, install anyway, you will see that, okay, what's actually used is, it's the content packs marketplace install API endpoint. So yeah, let's try to do this from Postman. Let's add a request. It was a post request. What was the endpoint? This was the endpoint used. Let's add this to the URL. And again, what was the body? This was the request body. No. Here we are. This was the request body. Let's first uninstall it to show you guys that it's actually getting installed. Okay, so now it has been uninstalled. And now let's execute the same request, but then through the API and through Postman. So did we do everything here? Yes. So now if we click send, okay, we get a 400 bad request. We should put ignore warnings to true. Okay, yeah. So because there is a Docker, the integration uses a Docker image which is not available on the server itself. It says, okay, it gives a warning, but if we set ignore warnings to true, this should work. Okay, so now we get a 200 OK response. And let's check out XSOAR and the installed content packs. And now we can see that the content pack has been installed. So yeah, this is a way that you can actually use a lot of undocumented API endpoints in your own custom scripts, basically. And that kind of wraps it up at all of the content we want to present. I don't know, Sebastian, were there any questions that came up during the presentation?
No questions from the chat. So if you have any questions, just speak up. Otherwise, I think this concludes this session.
You can see some people are writing in the chat, so. Okay, I can see one question from Ines. He says, okay, if I heard correctly, you are utilizing GitHub Actions to automate uploading to the production server. So are we using the CI/CD template from the NVISO? No, we're not actually. When we implemented this, that CI/CD content was not available. It didn't exist yet. So we actually developed something similar ourselves. If I remember, I haven't read it in detail, but the CI/CD content from XSOAR does a lot of automations about your CI/CD pipeline in XSOAR. For me personally, that doesn't make sense. I'm a big fan of using a tool for what it's using a tool for what it's meant to. So I think GitHub Actions are actually more suitable to automate all of your deployment pipelines. Yeah, okay. I see the Daniel's question about the Jupyter notebooks. Yeah, indeed. You can include all of these things in Jupyter notebooks, which allows you to do very, very interesting things actually with XSOAR. Okay, cool. I think that about wraps it up. So I would like to thank everybody for joining, and let's see you in the next episode of the webinar.
Just 1 second. There's another question coming into the chat.
Okay. Didn't see that one. Are lists also available through the API? Honestly, I don't know, but we can quickly figure that one out. So if we go to lists, let's here. Oh yeah, you have the /lists endpoint. So using the same thing we did below. So let's if we add a list, let's call it test, give it some data, save it. Let's see what we did here. Yeah, you have a /list/save endpoint available apparently, and this is basically what you can use. So if you use this endpoint, create the same request with the name of the list and I guess all the data, you could actually interact with list through the API. Yes, correct. Okay, I think that about wraps it up, Sebastian. Anything
Yes.
else you wanted to mention?
No, I think that's it for now. Thanks everybody for joining today.
Okay, bye everyone.
Thank you. Bye.